Hello, my name is Putkonen. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm talking about, after enlightenment, can one harm or kill another? This question came up on Quora, where I'm pretty active, and it tickled me, so I thought I would do a video answer as well for the channel in general. But the question has many misassumptions, wrong assumptions, and misunderstanding involved, but also it points at kind of a fundamental myth that after enlightenment, one would never harm or kill another. Hence the question. And it's really rather silly, because of course, the short, quick answer is yes. And I'm going to explain that, but let's explore this a little bit. Can an enlightened person harm another? Well, harm is a very vague term. It could mean a lot of things, and if you're very black and white about it, even the most minor of harm could be counted. Say, as an enlightened person is talking, they say something rather briskly and to the point, and so it bruises somebody's ego and they feel hurt or otherwise, diminished egoically or whatever by it. Well, this is hurting them. They feel hurt, hence it is hurting them. Can not an enlightened person bruise somebody else's ego by what they say? Well, of course. Say the enlightened person's in a relationship, and that existed prior to enlightenment, and so enlightenment happens, and in seeing things more clearly, perhaps you see a relationship is destructive and really not something that should go on, in terms of it's not helping anybody. And so an enlightened person may end such a destructive relationship. And if the other person does not want to end it, they may feel hurt that it's ending and you're walking away from them. Cannot an enlightened person end relationships? Well, of course they can. I mean, on occasion, I've had to cut off contact myself. I've had some people where they just keep going around and around in a circle, and eventually you can just tell it's not going anywhere. And you keep pointing at self and ceasing to do, and the person may keep constantly going back to what else can I do, and they're not getting the ceasing to do part. And after a fair amount of time, I might just go, this conversation isn't going anywhere. I'm getting off this merry-go-round. And I've had to end some conversations. It happens on a rare occasion. And if the person was hurt by this, if you're on the idea that after enlightenment, you would never harm the person in any way, well then that could be, in a very black and white way. Somebody could say, well, that's proof that they're not enlightened, which is ridiculous, because after enlightenment it is possible to bruise egos, to end relationships, or otherwise do things that might cause another suffering, feeling emotionally hurt or egoically hurt. Because that kind of suffering, that hurt, has nothing to do with the nerves of the body. It is due to the one who is hurt. It is their own misunderstanding, their own beliefs, their own ignorance that is causing themselves to feel hurt. They're hurting themselves. All relationships have to end at some point. And so, ending it at an earlier point by choice, because it's a destructive relationship, if anything, is a greater boon, because you're really trying to help them. See, in a way, if you're trying to help somebody through a surgery and they don't want the surgery because it's painful, what kind of harm are you really doing? Of course, a little bit of harm must be done to get rid of the greater harm. That's what happens. And that's a good transition to the physical side, because Some people go, well, I don't mean emotional hurting or egoic, bruising or, suffering in that way. I mean physical harming another. Well, can not an enlightened person use self-defense? Say there's a scenario where someone's armed and threatening to hurt many people, and due to where they're at, physically in relation, and they see an opportunity, and so they throw the person to the ground and lock their joints, or hit them very hard across the jaw and knock them out. Can not an enlightened person use self-defense and harm someone threatening a greater harm and put a stop to it? Well, of course, most people go, well, yeah, of course, that's totally okay. Well, that's harming. If you want to get very black and white, and somebody goes, well, an enlightened person shouldn't harm others, you're throwing away all the scenarios with a superficial rule in your head. And you're throwing away all the possible scenarios of, well, yeah, harming actually might, a small harm might be the better way to go to prevent a greater harm. Be it emotionally, be it egoic, hurting them, be it physical. A smaller harm might be worth doing to prevent a greater harm. And so you can't say, well, they should never harm. And then to what degree about the harm? Well, it might be the circumstances, because if it's a life and death scenario and you don't know how strong somebody else is, trying to go easy on them to minimize the harm could cause everyone else to be even in greater harm. So it's not like you can only joint lock and do very non-evasive things. It might, if somebody had, let's say, a gun or a knife and they were proficient in self-defense, they might do it in such a way it breaks the wrist. It's like, well, did you have to break their wrist? Well, no, but I wanted to make sure that I locked at a minimum and disarmed them, definitely. And it was a life and death scenario. So, it's one of those things where it's a judgment based on the understanding of the body and mind. And what I'm saying is after enlightenment, it is still possible to cause harm. So that's the first part. It is possible to cause harm, and the degree of harm is based on the understanding of the body and mind. Whether or when to act is based on the understanding of the body and mind. And so, after enlightenment, yes, one can harm another in various ways. But let's go to killing. Because some people go, well, fine, an enlightened person might harm another, but they would never kill another. Well, that is a lot of focus on the body of the enlightened one, and also the importance of like human bodies, because that question is really focused on a human killing a human, because it does not take into account all the killing that goes on just to eat and keep the body going. There's many a plant and animal being killed to eat. Many of the fresh fruits and vegetables, if eaten fresh and not cooked, are eaten alive. If you're eating a peach, a fresh peach, the pain recognition in a plant still goes off because that peach is alive when you're eating it. Most people don't think about that, but it's true. But plants, animals are killed for food. Simply cleaning your bathroom kills millions of germs and viruses. But we don't think about that. We don't think of that as very important. Well, those are killing germs and viruses, so be it. But that is focusing on form. And that is the fallacy, one of the main misunderstandings and assumptions and fallacies here. Because with enlightenment is a shattering of the illusion of me and other. But there's also the shattering of the pecking order of forms being better or worse than others. Substance is what's important, not form. So in a way, let's swap the analogy over to energy. From the point of view of energy, does energy care what forms it's in? Is a X-ray better than a gamma ray? Is a gamma ray better than a radio wave? Is electrical energy better than sunlight? Well, no, these are just forms of energy. Forms, as in constructs. It's all energy, regardless. And with the conservation of energy, energy is never created or destroyed. The forms simply change. And so the forms are ever changing, constant, and all forms are temporary. So all forms will end. Does a form ending matter to energy? If sunlight hits a black surface and is absorbed and turned into heat energy, does it care? No, not at all. Does the death of the light energy and the birth of heat energy matter? No, not at all. Nothing was gained or lost. The energy that was there is still there. It's just the forms have changed, nothing more. And so the death of millions of bacteria in cleaning the bathroom, well, all the energy is still there. It's just the forms are changing. And so this question is overly focused on human form, as if human form is all important and should never be killed. Also, it's not seeing the viewpoint of energy, because from the viewpoint of self, there's only self. The self is all there is. How many homicides are committed around just the planet Earth each day? Well, that is the self. The self is doing it. The self is the sole mover and force in the universe. Everything is the self, and everything is done by the self. And in that scenario, it is the self that is playing at killing, playing as a character, killing another character. The self doesn't have a problem with this. So why do we then assume, from this question arising, that upon enlightenment, an enlightened person would never kill anyone else? That seems like it's very contrary to what's actually happening in the world, what the self is doing. Now, I want to point to the question earlier, where we started was after enlightenment, can one cause harm or kill another? The answer is yes, they can. There is the ability. That ability is never removed. After enlightenment, one could kill another human. It could happen. It is the ability. Yes, they can. No matter how much you want to think that, there's only love and light and everything else, and so they would never kill another. That is pure imagination. That is really just trying to hide the fact that all is the self now. The war in Ukraine, the other half a dozen wars going on currently around the world, that's all the self. The self doesn't particularly care about the forms coming and going. And so, an enlightened person, if they were in a country, per se, where they got drafted, let's say they were young in, say, South Korea, where military service is mandatory. And so they come of age and they have to go in the military, and a skirmish happens. Would they kill another? They might. There's nothing that says An enlightened person could never kill. It is just the game of life. And if the game of life is that, oh, this player character is in the country and culture of having a draft, and so now I'm in the military, and as part of the military I need to defend this, they might do it. Or they might declare that they're not going to kill and take the consequences of disobeying orders, or protest, or what are all the various options. All the various options are possible. It is quite ridiculous, and not realizing the viewpoint of the self to say all options are possible except killing. The enlightened person is barred from this. You must understand that enlightenment is sometimes called liberation. There's freedom, total freedom, complete freedom. There is nothing that is barred. If they wanted to fight and kill to defend the country they're in, fine. If they even wanted to go on a killing spree, fine. It does not matter. Now, I will say, I will only lightly modify this in that I will say that after enlightenment, it does not make so much sense to harm or kill. And so they would be less likely to do so as the options. Because, again, all action and reaction arise from understanding. And from this understanding, if you see no other options that seem, like a good option, they're going to do what they're going to do. Because again, in non-duality, the other thing you must realize is there are no wrong choices. This question is also implying some kind of morality or ethic underneath, where it is absolutely wrong to harm or kill ever. That's kind of the implication of the question. And that's incorrect. In this total freedom and in understanding there are no wrong choices, you are literally able to do whatever you want. But based on the understanding, the realization that there's only the self, you don't typically want to harm or kill that much. I mean, if I see an animal or a spider or something in my house, I try to take it alive and escort it out of the house. Other times, I remember I saw it was a palmetto bug in the bathtub and its wings stuck to the tub, and so trying to get it up was actually hurting it, so I just killed it outright. Instead of letting it suffer and then be wingless basically in the wild. I spray for weeds. I don't mind killing the weeds for my lawn. I've got a pest guy spraying for bugs to keep cockroaches and ants and other things out of my house. There's no issue with this. I eat meat. I eat plants. There's no issue with this. Killing is not really an issue. That's what you must understand. Killing, death, the end of a form, is not that big of an issue. That which was never born cannot die. And knowing that that which is never born is all there is. Energy, from the viewpoint of energy, this might help some people, but from the viewpoint of energy, the forms that come and go really don't matter. It's all energy. Nothing's gained or lost. It is the attachment and fixation to specific forms and valuing them as higher that creates this question, that we should never kill other humans. That's really the question that's being asked. And that's a preference, a self-preference of someone who identifies with themselves as a human. The enlightened one does not identify as a human, nor a person. And so, if you got any questions, comments, please post below. Kind of rambled on there, but until next time, thank you much.